Hi guys, welcome to another Hustle to Wealthy episode. Today I'm really excited. I have my beautiful husband Tyral here with me.
Hey, how you doing?
As you can see, he is not very natural in chatting. However, at least not to a camera.
No, definitely not.
Very natural talking to me.
Yeah, well, let's go give it a nudge. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, so I'm very excited. Here we are. Today is Wednesday night, date night.
Yes.
I think everyone in our community knows that date night is actually meaning the two of us with no devices, no electronic devices, no connection to others. And here we are on the podcast.
Here we
just
are
natural,
with
right?
lots of electronics and not doing date night things. But that's all right.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll get to the
later.
date night. Yes, absolutely. So the reason I brought Tyral on is because today I wanted to chat about what does it mean truly becoming financially free and going from doing all of the work to none of the work, right? And just a backstory to Tyral. Tyral owned his own manufacturing plant, laser cutting.
Yep, that was us.
Engineering,
doing all the engineering things.
How many hours a week did you work?
Far too many.
Give us a ballpark.
Probably a small week when I might have been 60, and a large week would have been 80, 90, probably maybe getting close to the 100 on a particularly hefty week. But yeah.
Yeah, there has been
Big
days
weeks.
where he didn't come home and he slept at his desk. So that's a story for another day. And
let's not talk about that.
And I ask
We've gone past that bit.
So what I wanted to chat about, because then we sold the business, COVID hit, the doors closed, right? We were done. And we decided we were in a position to move to Queenstown, which was really exciting because I started my business going 10, 12 hours a day, super excited for you because you had all the time of the day. You didn't have to work. You didn't have to make money. You were truly financially free and time free.
Yep.
And then what happened?
Sat on my ass for quite a long time, and I probably got pretty close to the end of YouTube.
Yeah, that's what I think. I always joke about the fact that you've literally finished YouTube at some point.
Yeah.
So
that was what you thought, but I think in reality that one just a big come down off all those hours, not even being able to. I think one of the biggest problems is just trying to recover from doing such hours. Like, it really does take a toll on the body and on the mind, and a big toll on the mind, right? You need to rest. And I think just spending some days just staring into nothing.
All of the days,
yeah. Staring into nothing does kind of help. But I get where you come from, right? It does look like you're sitting there doing nothing, but there's a lot of recovery and a lot of going, what am I going to do next? Going through there. So it is. Yeah, that was a tough one. Like, I know that you had it tough because you were just sitting there going, he's got all the time in the world, and all he's doing is staring into.
For sure.
It's staring into a PC. But that's kind of what happened.
But it's not literally about me. Today it's all about you.
Yeah.
I know, because you love it so much. So the question I have for you is, okay, I understand you did YouTube. It was your recovery. Totally get it. We all have to space out sometimes, right? So it's not like I totally understand where you're coming from, right? But we are not talking here days. We are talking here months.
Yeah.
I remember us driving one day from somewhere, and I said to you, I didn't come down here meaning Queenstown, where you can ride your bike, hike, ski, all of that, for you to literally sit on the ass for 10 hours a day watching YouTube.
Yeah. So in that sense, there was a point where I went, I'm not working, and I felt really bad that you were doing all the work, right? You were just slaving away, and I was just like, oh. And my thing was just like, I kind of felt bad that you were doing all that, so I sort of just hung around the house and made sure you were fed, the house was clean, like the house was run, was pretty much more what I was seeing my job as. And I remember that we were having that conversation. You were like, we're crying out loud. Yeah, there were some strong words in that, but go out and do something, right? So, and it was probably a good kick in the ass. And I was pretty much at that point where I was just like, okay, cool, I need to do something else with my life apart from just staring into a PC, because that's not productive for anyone.
So let's talk briefly about that transition, right? So totally get it, recovery and all of that. But you went from engineering and literally running your own business, running your own team, CAD drawing, really technical engineering, to going, what am I going to do next? And one of our disclaimers was, whatever you did next had to be location free, because we wanted to travel, right?
Yeah.
So what was going through your mind or a process or something for you to discover, okay, I'm no longer an engineer, I'm no longer location tied. Now, what am I going to do next?
What I did next was I rode my bike a lot.
Yes, you did.
But also, like, I did ride my bike a lot, which is good. And I still do ride it quite a bit. But I definitely think, like, once you do need to do something. Like, you do need to do something with yourself. And it's like, as much as having all the fun in the world, and it's great, right? Like going out riding bikes and going hiking and skiing and all those fun things that we love to do.
Yes, he did all of it.
Yeah, doing all that good all sorts of things. Like, it's great, and it's great for the body and the mind, and you get used to spending some bit of time with yourself. I think that's another thing too. But yes, I felt at some point like I had to contribute back to society more than anything. You know, like, I have a bunch of knowledge, and I genuinely feel like this is my perspective on it, right? It can be anybody else's. My perspective is that you should contribute to your community. Like, you should be useful in some way. And that was one of the things, is like, when we were in IAW, I got asked, is like, oh, would you like to come on and do something with the IAW community? So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll give it a nudge. So one of the things I've probably have found is that I'm actually quite good at communicating with a few people. So as much as not all day, every day, it has its moments, but and you do have, you know, like, it's I quite like enjoy communicating and being involved in the community and spreading that knowledge, right? I think that's a big thing. It's just like, you have knowledge and you should be sharing it with other people. I think that's a big driver for me. It's just like, just love it. Love sharing the knowledge. It's like, that knowledge is not worth dying with in my brain.
Yeah, right? And I love it. So Tyral is the community manager in our community, meaning everyone who needs a hug or a direction in regards to what to do next, they come and you literally, like, I would say you're like air traffic control. First you give them the hug, and then you go, this is where you need to go, which I absolutely love. You do the onboarding session where you talk to people about the end game, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So tell me a little bit about that end game, and why do you love taking people through that original process of what we call the ultimate wealth acceleration plan?
Yeah, so my favorite part of the UAP, I guess it's called the ultimate wealth acceleration plan, but it's far too long to say all the time. I think one of the big parts that I do actually really enjoy is when you do talk about your financial independence spending plan, right? I think it's great, but a lot of people also really struggle with it. You know, it's a big thing to get down, and some people browse across it, but it's a number that you really need to sit down and work out what it does, what you need to do. You know, like I was in a lucky position, or we were, that I could go off and actually go and do the things that I love, and now I have a better perspective of it as I have lived it, or I am living it, and now I go, right, well, like, chunk down those goals, right? You know, it's like, and it's a hard thing to think, because it's like, beforehand you were doing so many hours, or you are still doing lots of hours. A lot of people don't think about what would I actually do if time and money were no issue, right? That is actually a big thing. I've had a lot of our clients that have come through and gone, I don't even know where to begin. And you've really got to sit down and take the time out, find yourself a nice relaxing space, and think about, if there was suddenly an extra 40 hours in your day, what would you be doing with it?
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So it is actually quite a bit of a challenge, because all of a sudden you have all this time and you have all this time to go and do whatever you like. And I was sort of probably in that same situation. It's like, now I have all this time that I do. What do I do with myself? Well, to start with, I sat in front of a PC watching YouTube for a month.
Or free.
And then decided that it actually wasn't a very good idea at all, and get out and go and do stuff.
Yeah.
So, and you need to go out and live your life, right? Honestly, it is such a good feeling just to be able to, like, get up and go do something. But you do need to. There are lots of traps. Like, there are lots of traps when you do have all the time and money. The first thing is probably staring into YouTube or whatever you want. Netflix, wasting time, right? that is a big killer. So be wary of that.
So, by the way, even though you might have watched the episode of me saying we don't own a TV, or I don't own a TV, and this is why, right? We haven't owned a TV since we've been together, and
Never
it's been
owned a
like
TV in my life.
in your life.
No.
Together, we were like 13 years, no TV. That does not stop him from being 8 hours wasting unconscious time in YouTube.
Yeah.
He's really smart now when it comes to cars. No. And engines, right?
I always thought, well, that's a previous life as well. Yeah.
So before we talk about the traps, because I like for having all this time.
Yeah.
For anyone who's wondering what's the financial spending independence number, even though I'm having struggles, financial spending independence number. It's basically your end game or your future vision of what you would do with your life when money and time was no object, all the dreams that you have for that life, and then putting a number towards them. So doing the research, figuring out exactly how much it will cost you. So much so that Tyral has probably the most perfect example, because while he was going with YouTube, the conversation went like this. I'm like, honey, you need to get passionate about something.
I did.
Yeah, he did. So next minute I'll get this budget of $50,000 a year, and it was a bike budget. And I'm like, what's this? And his response was, well, you asked me to get passionate about something, right?
It was pretty passionate.
So let's break
$50,000 worth of passion.
Yeah, exactly, for one bike. So let's break down. How did you? I think it was like 48,000 something.
Yeah, something like that. It wasn't quite.
So let's break down. How did you break down this plan, this passion of you riding your bike?
Okay, all right, cool. So how I broke that down, right? So I used to ride regularly before I became financially independent and finished up work and all that sort of thing. So beforehand, pretty much worked out. I rode once, like if I averaged it out, probably 1.5 times per year on a mountain bike, right?
Per week.
Per week. So what ended up happening is like it's a big passion of mine, and so I was just like, okay, cool. Well, I want to be riding 4 times a week. So pretty much, I went back and had a look at some of my expenditure over the year, and went, what wears out over the year, and then I pretty much went times that by 4. Because it's like all of a sudden, I think I probably, if I look hard at it, it's probably more than times by 4, because now since I've got more time, I also ride way more.
And longer, right?
And longer times, right? Because like the amount of times I'm out on my bike is way more, plus the amount of time I'm actually on bike, way more.
Yeah.
So it's like instead of going out for 2 hours, it might be 3 or 4 hours, but I'll be riding that every other day of the week. Well, not every great big day every day, but like all of a sudden the wear on all your stuff becomes way more. And this is one of those things that you've got to be wary of when you suddenly have all your time. Your passion that you're doing suddenly becomes more expensive, because like in my what I'm doing with riding bikes is like suddenly like I might go through a set of tires in 1 year. Well, all of a sudden I'm riding 4 times more. There's 4 to 6 times more tires, right? Plus these wear on all the other bits on bikes, and then I broke it right down and went chains, and then I went clothing and helmets and all this sort of thing. But there's also another side of this too, and being specific with what I'm doing is just like suddenly you have to look after your body. You're starting to be like, like it's rough. It's hard on the body. It's if you hit a tree or the ground, that shit hurts. So you're like,
we believe you.
Yeah. So like I thought about all these things, and I just went, well, all of a sudden I'm going to go like, well, I'm probably going to end up going and see the physio. I'm probably going to go and see the doctor. Like all these sorts of other things are going to end up going in there. So if you have things that you're passionate about that are physical or anything, right? You're always going to be, there's going to be more wear, no matter what. Like even if you enjoy fishing, you still got to, like if you have a boat, you go, cool, well, I've got a boat, right? But you still got to drive to launch it. You still got to
petrol to go
everywhere. Yep. There's maintenance on the boat, maintenance on the trailer, and it's got to have a warrant. And same thing with the car. You're going to be driving the car there more often. All these sorts of things. Like your rods and reels are going to have more wear. Generally, everything's going to be more of it. Like hopefully the offset of that is like you have a hell of a lot more fish as well. Yeah. You might have a few more people, a few more friends as well wanting to come on a boat.
and less money spent in the supermarket. That's
Yeah,
right? But yes, so I think this is the key that when we talk about the financial independence spending number and our end game, yes, our end game can change, but you really want to define the exact how much it will cost you. So Tyral came to 48,000, and we were the answer wasn't what the hell. Well, maybe that was my first initial reaction. But once I recovered from that budget, right? I literally went, okay, how do we break it down over 12 months? Like, how do we create a separate account for you to put the money into? Mm-hmm. How do we make our investments and our business work harder so that we can put the $50,000 a year to the side, right? And I think that's the key when you are like thinking about, you are now going from working 80 to 100 hours to I'm not working at all. What will that look like? Yeah. Right. For you.
You really do need to break it down, right? I think that's the biggest thing for people when you're thinking about, when you're looking at that strategy, right? It's like you really need to think about what you want to do, like your goals, and making them real, like making them actually mean something, and you actually want to do it and get to that point. I think that's the biggest thing, right? So if you're the most problem I come across when I talk to clients is just like, they go, I run through this plan, they go, okay, cool, and they come back to me. The number one problem I find is they go, I want to go on holiday, because everyone wants to travel, right? That's the main thing that I see.
Yeah, we have a lot of people in our community who just want to travel the world.
Well, it's the main thing that most people want to do, right? Even if you're not in the community, it's like, I want to go traveling when I've got all this money. Problem is it's like they go, hey, I want to go travel. It's going to cost me $50,000. And my first question back to them is like, okay, well, where do you want to go? And they're like, well, I don't know. It's like, what do you mean you don't know? And it's like, you want to go traveling $50,000? You just set the number on it.
Literally the response is there. Do you literally go, what do you mean if you don't know?
Yeah, pretty much, right? Yeah. And it's like, well, what are you talking about? I'm just like, look, make it real for yourself and be like, cool, I want to go to all these places, and break it down. You're like, if you've got $50,000 to spend that you've allocated to it, go and spend, find out how far $50,000 will get you. You know, like, it may get you to Spain, it may get you to the Antarctic, may get you to the US, it may get to Mallorca,
or to the North Island of New Zealand.
May get to the North Island of New Zealand. Who knows, right? You know, you may end up in South America. Who knows? So it's like, but make all these things real. Yeah. Like, break it down like I did. Like, my spreadsheet for my bike fund is very, very specific.
Yeah. And I think travel is an interesting one, because we've just spent 14 months traveling, right?
Yes.
By accident. So for everyone, this is probably a story for someone else, but literally that's what's happened. Like, we went, doors opened after COVID. We went, hey, let's go and see mom and dad in Europe.
Yep.
And I was like, yep, we'll go in May, and then we'll spend May, June, July in Europe, and then we'll be back for the midst of ski season. Let's do it.
Yep.
And then Tyral went, oh, there's a mountain bike race in September. Should we stay? I'm going to sneeze. Hold on for you.
Can I cut that bit out?
Yes. Sorry, B. So then we went and said, okay, Tyral said, hey, there's a race in September. Shall we stay? And I said, okay, cool. But we already planned the trip in May. So we were there now May, June, July, August, September in Europe, right? And then our business partner, Mark and Billy, they were like, oh, we want to go to New York for Christmas.
Yeah.
And we were like, this is really cool. We're coming to New York for Christmas. Always been a bucket list item for me. I'm like, what better way to spend Christmas than in New York?
Yeah, that's great.
Right?
Yeah.
But that wasn't until December. So then we were like, what are we going to do in October and November?
Yeah. So the bit in here that probably most people won't realize is that you can only stay in, like, without working it out. These visas only last so long. Holiday visas only last
usually
so long.
Like 90 days.
Yeah, like usually only 90 days. So you can only stay in Europe for X amount, or you can only stay in US for X amount. And you're like, so you got to be wary of those sorts of things when you start traveling, right? So that was one of those things. So instead of hanging out in Europe, we're going to end up getting in trouble. So we decided to go off to Mexico. Yeah.
So first we went Peru, but then we were so tired after 5 months having fun on the road. Don't get me wrong. But we never stayed anywhere than like 3 or 4 nights. That was like the max we stayed somewhere. And we did like 8,000 Ks in the car.
in a very short amount of
in
time.
a very short amount of time. So we were like, okay, we want to do a break somewhere. So we decided to go to Mexico.
Yeah. Well, here's sorry.
Giving
you context of this is like it was more expensive to head back to New Zealand for a couple months than it was just to be we don't need to be back in New Zealand for any reason. So we ended up being like, hey, let's go back. We might as well go somewhere else. So we went to Mexico, which is fun. It's hot.
Yeah. So we were 2 months in Mexico, and then we were in Mexico and we were going, okay, we're going to America, we're going to New York, super excited, bucket list item, and then we realized we missed the whole ski season in New Zealand.
That was a terrible mistake.
It wasn't a terrible mistake, because then it led us to the next step of our journey where we went, well, if we are already in the US for Christmas, why don't we go to Canada, Whistler, for skiing for 6 weeks afterwards, right? So there is more to the travel. This is just the first 12 months. But that's how we ended up traveling for 14 months straight, not being anywhere for longer than 4 nights at a time. Yeah. So it's pretty stressful. Yeah. Don't recommend it for anyone.
Would not do that again. And we found out after talking to a few other seasoned travelers that it's actually a terrible way to go.
Yeah. Well, we saw a lot. But the moral to the story is that we had planned, when we planned the first 5 months, we had planned what would travel look like and what would our life look like if we traveled every month. And then it was just a matter of managing that cash, because we had the expectation, we understood how much it would cost. We had savings in the background for, because it's not like you are paying your way. Like for us to go into Mexico, we had to also buy the tickets to America, and then from America to Canada, and from Canada. So we had our trip back to New Zealand already 5 months in advance. We had to pay for tickets, etc. Yeah. So we had the money and we budgeted for it. And I think that's the big key when you're traveling, is it's not just a matter of, hey, I want to travel, it's about $50,000. It is a matter of
break it down.
Make
sure you know what you need to do.
All right. So this was a very long sidestep.
Oh, was
a sidestep, yes. That's fine. But Mark and I go down the rabbit holes all the time.
Oh, okay.
So it's okay. Right. People, our audience is already used to the fact that we sidetrack into somewhere else.
We're going to do episode 2 on this.
So the question was, we were talking about going from working, hustling 100 hours a week to doing nothing.
Yeah.
Right? Killing YouTube, into the process of finding yourself again. You wanted to talk about traps. I don't know if you still remember what the traps were.
Oh, yeah, traps. Yeah, actually, cool. Yeah, no, that's all right. So traps for when you're financially free and you suddenly find yourself with not so many things to do.
So wealthy rather than hustling.
Yeah. So giving up the hustle, really. So some of the traps are, you've got to find a bit of a purpose, if that's going riding bikes every day or going fishing every day, then that's great, right? If you want to feed the world or
with the fish you
catch, great.
Hey, you didn't feed the world by riding your bike all the time.
Yeah, but I moved a bit of dirt around.
That's your contribution. Okay, got it. Just wanted to make sure I knew what the purpose was. Yeah, okay.
Enjoyed a lot of nature, and so So some of the traps, for when you're doing that sort of thing is just one of the things is you can end up you can get into the habit, you can pick up some pretty bad habits, right? One of them is wasting a lot of time. So it's to stay motivated and doing the things that you want to do can actually end up being quite hard. So I always found if I had a routine, and I am a sort of a routine sort of person, as much as my time was free for me to do whatever, I still had to have a routine. I still had to be I need to be here. I need to do this. I need to do this. Get up at X time. Try not to that was probably one of the biggest things for me, is just not just lie in bed all morning and waste half a day. It's 10, 11 o'clock and then you just rolling out of bed. It's you still need to be up and out and going and do things. But if you're not a morning person and then you stay up late and you stay late until the night, I'm not. I prefer hanging out during the day. I just prefer to get up early, get things get on the bike, get things done, move through the day. I am a routine person. I'm a creature of habit. I need those things in things just breakfast needs to be at this time, lunch needs to be at this time, dinner needs to be at this time. That's my sort of to keep things going. But yes, you do need things to keep going. And that's sort of probably one of the biggest factors, just staying motivated and not just sitting on your butt all day, every day.
I think this is the interesting thing about like having like a routine and a process, because for a long time we didn't have a routine.
Yeah.
And you literally found yourself getting up, like, and Tyral, like, he is the one who tried to convince me that the 5 a.m. club is a good thing. I know there will be a lot of you guys cheering on for Tyral, going right now, the 5 a.m. club is the most amazing thing. I hated every single day out of that 5 a.m. club, and we did this for a few years because you loved it so much, while I don't, right? Like, I'm an evening person, a lot more creative there. But so in that trap, when you go, okay, I've got all the time, I'll waste my time, I don't have a routine, what would be like the first, or what was the first thing you put into place to make sure that you could go back to a solid routine?
To be honest, just getting up early, even if it means setting an alarm, to much to your disgust, I know. But it's more like...
I spent how long? Spend my whole life working towards not having an alarm, and here an alarm goes every morning at 6. It's frustrating.
But in the end, and that's one thing, right? Sorry, excuse me. That's one thing. We do now. I think we've been the alarm now, which is kind of nice. But I do think is like setting the intention for the next day of things that need to get done, and keeping yourself accountable to those things as well. Like, you'll find your brain will, if you miss doing a couple of things a few times, it'll keep missing doing things, and then that's where the routine drops out, right? If you don't keep yourself accountable to getting shit done every day, because you still need to have things done, like, no matter what. No matter if you have to go to the supermarket, or you still have to look at that investment, right? You still have to do some due diligence. You may still have to, like, sit down, have a call, do something else as well. But, it's like, so things are, like, you still need to look after what's happening. You still don't need to look after the house, what else is going on in life, people, that sort of thing as well. Staying connected. Sorry, I'm going to go off on another tangent. One of those other things too is just like staying connected to people as well, is a big thing. Because you suddenly find this is a trap too, right? You know this as well. This is like when you have so much time to yourself, you can find it quite lonely, mainly because you end up doing all the fun things that you want to do during the week. But what you'll find is all your friends are still working.
Yeah, so definitely, I think it's a matter of staying connected, but also leveling up, right? Who you surround yourself with, and who you like. Not necessarily that the people around us aren't working, because we have plenty of friends who are, but like being able to share. Like, I remember when you still worked and hustled, you always said to me, I was always going, hey, have you spoken to such and such? And you said no. And I remember you saying to me at the time, they don't ride a bike, I don't have time for them, because the only little bit of time you had, you wanted to ride your bike. So unless your friends rode a bike, right, it didn't happen. Right.
Pretty much.
So on the flip side, for being financially free and living the life, there's two. And one, your friends work 9 to 5, but also you're no longer as relatable to your friends. Because they all still working 9 to 5, they're still feeling the hustle, or, like building their businesses. They don't have that freedom. And suddenly you find that you have very little in common, right? Because you've had this experience lately too. Right?
Yeah, you do, right? You sit down with some friends, and it's just like, you'll sit down with your friends and you'll be like, oh, what's happening this week? And I'm like, oh, I'm going to work. Kids are doing this, kids are doing that. Yeah, cool. And it's very much like, I don't know if you've told whoever's been watching this about Mark. He said the same thing. Like, you go back home and see your family, you don't talk about investing and all that fun stuff you do anyway.
Yeah.
Right? You get to the point where it's like you go and see mum and dad and you talk about Auntie Flo's hip and the garden and the rugby and all that sort of thing, which is all good and fine. But what you'll find is like a lot of your friends that you had really good connections with, because you had the same interests, is like, it'll get hard. It can get harder and harder to have those conversations, because quite often you're no longer having those conversations with people. If you're involved with a community, and the community like IAW or whatever, right? You do end up talking a lot about like what's happening in the investing world, what's happening, like finances and all those sorts of things. And you do end up talking a lot about, what's happening in the world as well, right? You end up talking about all sorts of really random things and going down some very deep and very random rabbit holes. We've had some serious late night conversations with a bunch of people, right?
I think everyone in our community also needs a silver hat because we have so much time. But conspiracy theories come out as well, but not necessarily conspiracy. Like, it's not so much about conspiracy as it's about like digging deeper beyond of what the typical media will tell you, right? And sharing. Like, I love the fact, like, the friends that we have that joined our community and are on the same path.
Yeah.
Like, you literally go, hey, how you doing? What's this investment doing? Like, this is the first, and then you dive straight into finances.
And even why, and I think the other thing too is like why, like if you're talking markets and that sort of thing, like why are things moving in the direction that they're going? And then there's a whole lot of theories of why it could and why it couldn't. And why is this company doing this and why is that company doing this and what's shifting around in the world and what's making markets move and that sort of thing. So your conversations are quite different. It can be like going back to the original statement of it can end up being quite lonely and it can be hard. Like we had that, kind of dig a little deeper.
Yeah,
we have had that conversation. Like Paulina and I, and I'm actually talking directly to the camera at the minute. It's like Paulina and I have had a few friends that have fallen out of the way, and then we were actually pretty gutted about that because they were pretty close friends. And not because of, I don't think anything different, but it was just like we're just having different conversations and that sort of thing. And we were pretty gutted about it. And when we sat down, and I remember we talked to Mark and Billy about it, and they were saying was like, as you're moving through your life, you will find some people will fall out with you just because what you're doing, and they can't see, I don't know, they either remember you as you were and not as this person who now stands in front of you anymore.
Or the other way, they are still the person that they were and they can't relate, right?
Yep.
We have both lost a couple of really close friends, like on either side, which took us months. For me, it took a couple of years to get my head around losing these people, right? And it really literally came down to the difference between what they were dreaming and their expectation of what life should be, right, is what we were doing. So we were that step ahead, and rather than celebrating with us and going, or even asking the question, how do you do this, right, and help us, they just got upset about it and chose not to continue.
Yeah. So you have to be, and this is sort of one of those things, like you've got to be careful about what you say to some people. That's one of those things I've really, really learned over the last year or so. Like probably like really when we were traveling, like I'm really, like when I talk to other people outside of our community, I'm really careful about what I say and what I'm talking about. Mainly because it's like some people just think you're mad.
Yeah, totally. It's like you should. I love always people ask me, and I'm like, I have so many varieties of this because I have not set up. But people ask me, what do you do? Right?
Yeah.
And
it's such a hard question to answer. Sometimes.
Exactly, because like if I go, I'm a wealth coach, right, or I'm the CEO of the International Academy of Wealth or whatever. It's obviously all connected to finances, and people then like there's two sets of conversations you have. You either have the cool, tell me more, or are you a scam? Like we literally had friends that we had for years who go, are you involved in a scam? Which makes me laugh. Because, they've known us for such a long time. So to get that, like, because they watch us and they don't want to dig deeper, so they automatically go, it's a scam.
Yeah. Or I just get the old blank look. Yep. Cool.
Yeah. Cool.
Do you see the rugby in the weekend? No.
Yeah.
No, too busy doing something else.
Anyway, for everyone who's listening, I brought Tyral on because I wanted to really give you guys a different perspective of what it means hustle to wealthy. Like we can dive deep and go and say, it's the best thing you can potentially do. And would you prefer to do the 100 hours a week or what you're doing now?
Yeah, I'd rather be going riding bikes and helping people.
Yes.
Yeah. Doing cool stuff.
But tell me, the transition wasn't an easy one, was it?
No, it's brutal. Yeah, it's brutal. Especially, and I think probably one of the hardest things was for me, it was just like I was doing so many hours to all of a sudden doing nothing. It's really hard, right? Because you're such a busy person beforehand and all of a sudden you've got all this time And then there's a big wind down going, what am I doing with myself? You start asking yourself, like, what's my purpose? What am I doing? How can I contribute? How can I contribute? And what's best going to serve myself? And, because, fill your own cup first and all those sorts of things. It's not an easy transition. You do have to look after yourself, and you have to look out. And at some point, you go, right, cool. Well, I'm ready to get back out into the community and help some people, and I've got some knowledge, and I think I can help them. So, there's all those sorts of things.
Yeah. So the transition doesn't necessarily mean it's an easy one, but it is definitely one worthwhile.
Yeah, I would far prefer doing what I'm doing now and going off and doing fun stuff. I mean, like there's a bunch of our friends that in the middle of winter that have to go to work. We go skiing instead. The audience knows all about our skiing, so I don't think we need to dive deeper into this. But I think also the one thing when you are in the hustle, the thing that I would question, and I know I questioned this with you when you were in the middle of hustling hard, is what's your attachment to the hustle? Like, you used to wear it like a badge of honor. Yeah. And if you had a 60-hour week, you almost freaking made up work so that you could pretend you needed for longer, right? Yeah, 100%. It's just like, what am I there's still work to do. And it's like, is it? Yeah. It's just like, it's not, I think one of the biggest things that I've learned since we've pulled the pin on that business was just like, your business should really be, it needs to work for you, right? You shouldn't, if it's not working, if things aren't working out for it, you need to change it. And be it that your role in your business needs to change, you need to get out of your business, or it needs a major restructure so it does work for you. Like, there isn't actually a badge of honor for doing a bajillion hours, because it sucks. And if you're doing a bajillion hours, you're doing it wrong. And 100%, I believe that now. I'm just like, I would never go back to doing those amount of hours for all the money in the world. It's not just not, like, your life just isn't worth it. Like, there's a big chunk of my life where I go, yeah, that was cool, and I learned a lot of things, but I'm just also like, I missed out on a lot of stuff, and it's like so much stuff I missed out on, and you just can't get that time back. No matter, like, even now, like, I've got all the time in the world, but I can't get the time back then on all the things that I missed out on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, family and stuff like that is way more important than being stuck at work, staring at the machine, going around circles, cutting holes. It's fun, but it's not that much fun.
Yeah, and it's like, we're talking about the fact that today is date night, but it's funny because at the time when we were both so stressed and we were doing all the hustling and all the hours, I remember we incorporated date night because our relationship was struggling, right?
Yeah.
We just didn't have enough time to connect. We weren't on the same page. We didn't have time to listen to each other. Both of us came home frustrated. So it was a matter of like, who had the shittier day to share. So it's one of our relationship rules is when we were in that phase going, okay, you tell me 5 minutes about your day. I tell you 5 minutes about my day. Whoever had the shittier day, the other person had to suck it up.
Yep.
Right?
100%.
So we incorporated the date night into it, and that was, and then when we did it, we automated date night. Now that sounds stupid, but that's literally what we did. We went, okay, how do we create, we have 90 minutes together before both of us fall dead into bed. How are we going to do the least amount of decision making, etc.? So we used to go to the same restaurant, order the same food, the same drinks. Yep. So we would walk into the restaurant and the waitress would look at us and go, same. And we were like, yep. So that we wouldn't waste time on looking at the menu or making a decision. Yeah. It was a good time of our life. But that's how streamlined we went.
Yeah, that was pretty stressful. And that was probably one of the, I think that was pretty, kudos to that restaurant and they were amazing. And their bars and their staff.
Barrio Brothers in Mount Maunganui, if you're ever there.
Free plug out there.
Yeah.
They were amazing. We'd walk in and they were just like, here's your table. And they'd just be like, same. We're like, yeah, same for everything. And it would just come out and job done, tasty food, go home, have a chat, go to sleep.
Yeah. Absolutely. Anyway, again, we're sidetracked. We'll talk about it in one. But I want to challenge you guys. Think about why are you doing all these hours? Why are you hustling? What attachment do you have to making all these hours? And what are you missing out on? Like, what are you literally missing that you're never going to get back because you've decided that this is the way to go.
100%. Like, you can't get, like, if you have, like, we don't have kids, but if, well, like, I see my friends with their kids, and it's like, if you, like, I would far prefer, if I was a father, to be able to hang out with my kids than being at work.
Absolutely.
Like I've seen, you can see it, like you see some guys, some families are like, they're really missing out on family time and hanging out with their family. Even now, like, our parents are getting older, right? So for us, one of the big things is to actually go and spend more and more time with our parents. So like they're getting into their twilight years, I would say. And they probably don't want to admit it, but it's one of those things, they're going to fall over at some point, right? And then there's no parents anymore.
Yeah.
Like, there's only a few more years left if you really start breaking it down. I can't remember. I think it was somebody who broke down, like, you've only got X amount. Like, if you had to spend some time with your parents, and like, like, I can't remember the equation, but it's actually pretty scary, like how little time they were going to spend with them. And like, I think actually how it was just like, someone had asked the interviewee, and it was just like, how often do you go and see your mother? And he goes, I don't know, once a year, twice a year. I was like, cool. How old is she? And he's like, she's 70 or something. I'm like, he's like, cool. So she's probably going to die in the next 20 odd years or 10 years or something like that. You're going to see her 10 more times or 12 more times. And that's it. And she'll be gone. So that's something to think about, like, I know that's getting a bit morbid, but
I tried to finish on a high note.
But it's one of those things, like we're talking about, is it's like you only have so much time in your life, and you only have so much time with your parents, and you only have so much time with your kids before they become adults, and then they do their own thing as well, right?
Yeah.
They will go off and do their own thing, and then you're going to be sitting around twiddling your thumbs.
So this is like, that is something that we're both passionate about, and that's why we ended up traveling 14 months, 5 months in Europe, because it started off with, I wanted to spend more time with my parents. But like, even this time around, like this summer, we have both our parents here. Yep. Your parents are here for 6 weeks. My parents are here for 3 months. So the conversation might be very different in 3 months' time. Disclaimer. But no, we're kidding. But we're really looking forward to the fact that we have the time to spend with our families and our loved ones. We are traveling with both our parents around the South Island. We're taking my parents to Australia. So like, it's very, like, we are really excited about the fact that we can connect with our families for such a long period of time. So we might only see them once a year, but we see them once a year for like 4, 5, 6 weeks, 3 months, not for 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 hours.
Yep.
All right. So back to the equation. This is a real life transformation. Really wanted to share the story because not every transformation is easy. Totally, we were addicted to hustle. Now we're addicted to wealth and being wealthy. No more hustling.
No more hustling.
I think our bodies are allergic to the word hustle now, just because we can. So if you guys have any insights, you have any questions, you want to ask Tyral any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. Otherwise, we'll see you on another episode.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.